Every once in a while, a job will be awarded to a director with very short notice. The production team will be left scrambling to meet an impossibly short deadline. You will then be hired and effectively just thrown into the deep end. Now, whether you're going to sink or swim, well, that's entirely up to you. So this is the shot list in question. Now what you see here in the A frame, right, this is the primary storyboard. This is the main story happening. So we start out with an establishing shot of a street basketball game. Then we cut to two guys behind a fence talking to each other. We'll go through these shots one by one as we're drawing them. Now the B, C, and D frames, these are the shots that are gonna open up within the A shot. I feel like the smart way to do this is just to focus on the A frames first as they tell the main story. Afterwards, we can double back and we'll fill in the B, C, and D shots. All right, let's start drawing. The first shot is simply an establishing shot of a street basketball game. I'm picturing a wide 3/4 shot of a half-court game, so let's just go with that. Now, when I was a kid, I went to Our Lady of Grace Elementary School in Hoboken, New Jersey, and directly across the street was the 5th Street Park. Whenever I think of an urban park, for some reason, that's the one that springs to mind. So that's the one I'm going to be drawing. So I'll have this one guy doing a layup, maybe 5 of his friends on the court with him. Then I'm gonna drop a chain link fence into the foreground, which sets us up for shot number 2, dudes behind fence talking to each other. As much as possible, I like to try and create a little bit of depth with my shots, so I'm gonna sketch out the first guy, the foreground, camera left, then drop the second guy down in the middle. All right, both guys are gonna be looking camera left because for some reason that's where I picture the game happening. I'll add a piece of the fence, the very edge of camera left, to try and counter the weight of this guy all the way on the camera right, and hopefully balance the composition out just a bit. Basketball dude doing James Harden Soup Bowl. I had no idea what that was, but fortunately, there was an image in the director's treatment. So I'm just gonna go ahead and copy that image, drop it in here, and trace exactly this. I have no idea what this is. I'm sure most of you probably do. I've never been a sports guy. Okay, you know what? Now that I've gone through the treatment, I found this photo in the director's treatment and I kind of like it better than the first shot that I made up. So I'm gonna completely ignore what I drew before. Let's ditch that. To hell with the 5th Street Park. And I'm just gonna go ahead and trace this. I mean, if we're being fair, it's a more dynamic shot. So we're just gonna go with what he found. All right, so now the 4th shot, some dude leaving for work in his car. Not a whole lot to go on. So, but I do know in the next shot, there's gonna be some other guy walking down the sidewalk and he yells out to him, like, so taunts him. Then we're gonna cut back to the guy in the car, shaking his head, no, not this year. And then we're gonna have textures of the city as he's driving. So these 4 shots are part of the next vignette. Okay, so the way I'm picturing this is an interior shot of the car, looking past the driver, out the driver's side window, and we'll see the city in the background, but more importantly, we'll catch that guy who's gonna be yelling something to him. So I'm seeing this as just a clean shot of the guy walking down the sidewalk. I'm not gonna put the driver in it yet. So it's almost like when the guy's yelling to the driver, it's almost like he's kind of yelling at us, the camera. I may double back and put a piece of the driver dirty on the left-hand frame, but for now, let's just stick with this. Well, the guy walking down the street, we've got his arms out here like, hey, what's up? And of course, I'm gonna throw in a little urban environment in the background. All right, we're gonna stoop, porch. Again, for some reason, I'm drawing Hoboken, New Jersey, even though I know that's not what it's supposed to be. I'll put some darker lines emphasizing the car in the foreground just to sort of pull it off the background a bit. Then the next shot will be the guy walking down the street. So it's a medium close-up I'm picturing of him yelling, championship, which I guess is what people who like sports yell. And as you can tell by these lovely little red arrows in the corner, I am imagining this shot as a push-in. Back to the guy in the car, shaking his head, not this year. Okay, for the final shot on this page, I want to catch the driver from the front, but I don't want him to be staring straight down the barrel because it's just a bit weird. But at the same time, I don't want a full 3/4. So instead, I'm simply going to swing the camera slightly around to the left. In the industry, we call this a 7/8 shot. That's a little insider lingo for you kids. Try to keep up. Now, before we call it a wrap on this page, I'm gonna grab my chisel brush, in case you care, and revisit each of these frames. I just want to thicken a contour line for anything that I feel needs to pop off the background more, just to make it a little bit easier to read, because that's my job, folks. Okay, so if you recall, the final shot in this little vignette was simply written as "Picture of city as driving." A quick Google search landed me this nifty photo of a tenement building, which was conveniently taken from ground level. So I'll simply flip the image so that it matches with the driver's approximate point of view, and boom, we just knocked out yet another shot. Which leads us to a guy standing on street corner receiving text. I'm not going to overthink this one. I'll draw a wide shot of an intersection using the rule of thirds to drop the guy down here in the bottom third. Alright, looking down at the timeline here, I'm realizing this is starting to become a rather long episode. I'm walking a bit of a tightrope here because on the one hand, I do want these videos to be smaller, but on the other hand, I'm concerned that they're beginning to feel a little too much like speed drawing videos. I'm caught between trying to keep them down to a manageable size and trying to cram them with as much usable information as possible. So, I'm going to speed things up a bit, but I'll try not to fly past anything important. You let me know in the comment section below if you feel like I cheated you. Alright, the next shot says, "Dude in elevator," saying his line. Now, I know from having read the script that there are in fact two guys in this elevator, so that's what I'm going to draw. I'm decided on a medium because the last shot on the street corner was wide, and it's always good to try to keep things visually interesting. There's a general rule of thumb in filmmaking that when you're cutting, whether you're cutting in or cutting out, as long as we're not talking about a match cut, you want to jump in at least 30%. And so the subject in frame should have at least a 30% change in size. Next up on the shot list reads, "In line at the pizza shop, one dude says." Again, I know from reading the agency script that this vignette involves two guys arguing in a pizza shop. So I found this random photo online of two guys who look like they're about to come to blows. As you'll soon see, I'm using it as a reference, but I'm not exactly tracing it. First, I started by sketching out the gesture line that runs through both figures. This gives me the energy or flow that I want to capture. Afterwards, I'm sketching in the bodies, but I'm making subtle changes that will enhance that angry or threatening gesture line. Essentially, I'm trying to take the spirit of the pose, but enhance the body language a bit to better sell the idea that they're about to go at it. And then, using a completely different photo I found, I sketched out a pizza shop around them. Now, the photo I found had the 3/4 angle I was looking for, but the camera was a bit too high. I want to keep this all at eye level so it feels more voyeuristic, like maybe we're one of the patrons about to watch this fight break out. But even though I can't trace the photo, having it up on screen while I draw gives me all the info I need to sketch in a convincing pizzeria. And just to add a bit of drama, I'll toss in a couple of looky-loos here in the background. At this point in the story, the director wants to kind of hint at where this is all going. So, we're going to just tease the MGM line. After dropping this image down into our storyboard template, I'm going to grab a white brush and just paint in the rim line, just enough to suggest that it's a line. Then, fill the rest of the frame in with black. Okay, here's the part where you're likely to feel a bit cheated.
Yeah.
A couple of months earlier, I had drawn a Visa commercial that's centered around a neighborhood barber. So, for these next few shots, I just didn't see reinventing the wheel. Instead, I'm just going to see if any of those earlier drawings can be recycled. And boom, I think that shot looks pretty damn good. Next shot, the razor buzzes loudly. I'm feeling like I'm going to cover this beat with two close-ups. First, the barber with an insulted look on his face, and then the customer getting buzzed with the clippers. The next vignette begins with backyard game, kid throws football. I decided to make my life easier by simply Googling kid throwing football in park. You'll find I start doing this a lot more the further I get into a job because, frankly, I'm running out of steam here and I don't feel like having to think. What I'm looking for is a simple wide shot of a kid throwing a football. Once I've got my pose selected, I'm just going to rough in a generic background. Using my grass marker paint nozzle, I'll lay in some grass texture here, then drop it in my photo and trace away.
On frame right, I'll sketch in a second kid who's going to be catching the ball. And finally, just to fill the frame out a bit, I'm going to sketch in a tree here. The final shot in this vignette is a zoom in on kid doing Gronk spike. Now, particularly, I have no idea what a Gronk spike is, but another trip to Google easily solved that problem. Once again, I'm copying the photo, but I'm not exactly tracing. I guess I'm just taking from it what I need. And then I'm finishing the frame out by adding in the house, the other kid, and the other backyard elements. Okay, we're about to bring the first pass of these boards to a close. After all this mayhem and arguing, the spot is about to be completely disrupted by the roar of the MGM lion. Unlike the previous tease, we're now going to see him in all his regal glory. For the final vignette in the spot, we come full circle and revisit the two kids from the first vignette. The second kid speaks the final line. You willing to put money on that? So what I'm going to do is grab the earlier frame, flip it so that it's clear that it's the second kid talking, then I'll change our features and finally swap out the background with some generic buildings. And boom, we are finally done with all the A-frames. But our work is far from finished because now we've got to go back and put in all of the B, C, and D frames. The easiest way to address all these additional frames is to rebuild the entire board from scratch using the now existing frames. The first two shots have no pop-ups, so we can just copy and paste those in as they currently exist. The third shot is going to have two pop-up windows. Now that I'm looking at the frame, I'm realizing I'm going to have to add some more negative space on the camera right side of frame in order to fit in these pop-up windows. After doing that, I'll copy and paste this frame in twice. The shot list calls out for a sportscaster talking to a microphone for this first pop-up window, and the aspect ratio is going to be 1:1. The second pop-up is an Instagram 9:16 aspect ratio, showing some guy sitting on his apartment stoop arguing into camera. Okay, so as much as possible, I am striving to explain why I choose the camera angles that I do, because it's a topic I get asked about a lot. But honestly, for these pop-ups, I'm really just flying on autopilot here. They're both just signals of people talking directly in the camera, so not a whole lot to them. And moving right along, I'm going to take this whole car pedestrian vignette and move it into place, duplicating the street corner shot and the single of the driver. The guy in the street corner is receiving a text that says, "No way." The guy in the street corner is receiving a text that says, "No way." Going back to the close-up shot of the driver, don't ask me why I did these out of order, but we have him sending a text message which reads, "Tell him to put his money where his mouth is," followed by "C treatment." Sure enough, in the treatment, I found this text window, apparently sent from Michael Rappaport. I'll paste that down into place and then trace the window and all its relevant icons. I really do not want to waste my time writing in all this text, so a quick Greeking job will take care of that. The elevator shot has no additional pop-ups, but the pizza parlor has 3. So we'll duplicate that shot 3 times and set up our pop-ups. Ultimately, these are going to be shots of a dog barking furiously, a guy in the middle yelling at camera, and then a guy on the right who looks like he's yelling at the dog. I'm positioning all 3 frames in the final shot first, just so I can get the alignment correct. Then I'll drop back and draw them all up. The line silhouette and the barber vignette have no pop-ups, so they're good to go. The final vignette that requires pop-ups is this backyard football scene, and this is where things start getting crazy. First, we've got a woman screaming in a car. Then a radio announcer. Followed by some guy vlogging while on the toilet. And this random angry guy just shaking his fist in the air. Moving on to the second shot in this vignette, we have a close-up of the football spike. Then this chick from the director's treatment. Let's drop in a few more pop-up windows and fill them with gasoline being poured onto a fire, which I think is kind of funny. And then another few posts featuring angry, arguing people.
Are silenced by the roar of the MGM lion. We'll drop in the MGM logo, and then finally we can put this beast to bed. As I mentioned earlier, this first pass is a bit of a Hail Mary. Who the hell knows how much of this will make it to the final cut? In our next episode, I will follow up with the director's response, and I'll walk you through all of the changes that needed to be made. All right, folks, if you made it this far, then you are an absolute trooper.
And I dig that about you.
If you have any questions about today's episode, or if you just want to tell me how much you hate me, drop on down to the comment section below and hit me up, Buttercup. And as always, if you found this video insightful or entertaining, and would like to see more of them in the future, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Until next time, this is Vinny Delay, and you can grow rich.